Liquid chromatography. Part 1, separating dyes. You'll need the following materials for this experiment. To begin our experiment, we need to prep the C18 Sep-pak column with some 70% isopropyl alcohol. So I'm drawing 10 milliliters of this 70% isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to attach the syringe to the Sep-pak. And I'm going to slowly and consistently push the isopropyl alcohol through the Sep-pak. So we're just pushing all of that alcohol through. I've put this on fast forward. So once we push all of that 70% isopropyl alcohol through the Sep-pak cartridge, we're going to repeat this same procedure, but this time we're going to flush through the Sep-pak with DI water. So measuring out into the syringe, about 10 milliliters of distilled water. And we're going to just push this distilled water through the cartridge, just like we did with the alcohol. So we're going to push all of that water through the Sep-pak, same procedure. So the purpose of this is to make sure there's nothing left inside the cartridge, make sure that it's all been cleaned through, and to moisten the cartridge so it'll be ready to receive our Kool-Aid sample. So I'm going to do that one more time, once again with my distilled water. So using about 10 milliliters of distilled water. We're going to go ahead and push that through the cartridge again. So this video has been sped up a little bit, so I'm just slowly and consistently pushing that water through that cartridge using the syringe. So now that I've pushed those isopropyl alcohol and water through the syringe, we're now ready to inject the Kool-Aid sample. So I'm going to use my syringe to gather 1 milliliter of my Kool-Aid sample here. And we're going to go ahead and attach that cartridge to the end of the syringe. And we're just going to push all of that Kool-Aid into the cartridge. When we do that, some water from what we previously injected into the cartridge is going to come out the other end. So I'm just slowly and consistently pushing that Kool-Aid sample into the cartridge. We can see that Kool-Aid sample at the top of the cartridge now. So next we're going to take a syringe and we're going to fill it with some 18% alcohol. So this is isopropyl alcohol as well. We're drawing up about 10 milliliters of 18% isopropyl alcohol into the syringe. So I'm going to go ahead and attach my syringe filled with alcohol to my cartridge. And now we're prepared to push this through the cartridge. So as I force this isopropyl alcohol through the cartridge, we can start to see those colors beginning to separate. So here we see the red separating out, and we can see the blue is more strongly retained. Now I want to record the volume in order to extract each of these different colors. So I'm recording my starting volume, pushing through until I see purple, and then I'm recording that as my end volume and the beginning volume of purple. So I'm going to keep pushing through till all the purple comes out. And I'm going to record that end volume. And then I'm going to do that again until all of my blue dye has been pushed out. So we still see some blue dye. This has been sped up. And looks like there's no more blue dye left in there, so I'm going to go ahead and record my final volume. Part 2, separating all components. So in this part of the procedure, I've prepared my cartridge and I've filled it with 1 milliliter of Kool-Aid sample. So to remove the first component, we're going to use a syringe that's been prepared with 5 milliliters of distilled water. And this is going to separate the citric acid from the Kool-Aid mixture. So I'm going to use my syringe to push through this 5 milliliters, collecting into a labeled beaker. And I'm just going to push all 5 milliliters of this distilled water through. So now we have separated the citric acid from the other components in the Kool-Aid solution. So now we're going to separate out the next component of the solution. So I'm going to use a syringe that's been prepped with 10 milliliters of 5% isopropyl alcohol. And this is going to allow us to separate out the red dye. So using a labeled beaker to collect this portion, I'm going to push through all 10 milliliters of the 5% alcohol solution. So here we can see the red dye being forced through and the blue dye being retained. Once we've pushed through all of this dye, we're going to prepare to separate out the next dye, which is going to be the blue dye. So using a syringe that has been prepped with 10 milliliters of 28% isopropyl alcohol and a fresh beaker to collect this next fraction, I'm going to go ahead and push through this higher concentration alcohol through the Sep-pak cartridge. Here we see the blue dye moving through the cartridge and into our beaker. Once we've separated the blue dye, the last components that remain are going to be separated in the next fraction. So taking my Sep-pak, this time using 70% isopropyl alcohol and 10 milliliters, I'm going to push that through the cartridge, collecting the liquid that comes out in a separate clean beaker. This beaker can be allowed to dry out, and then you should be able to see and smell the flavoring oil from grape Kool-Aid. So we're just pushing this through. And this is going to push through any of those flavors and oils that were present in the Kool-Aid after we separated out all of the other components. So here are our 4 separated components from our Kool-Aid mixture.